Haven't heard Hello Brew in about a year.
Yes,
But
Brad.
how's it, my?
Yeah, my bro. Hey, we've missed you here, man. Are you
I
an
like it,
American?
Donna.
What are you doing over there? You've been there the whole year.
No, we've been stuck. We decided that we need to expose ourselves to a presidential election and a pandemic and all in one calendar year and
Yeah.
tick the box. So we're coming home.
That's life-richening stuff. I think you'll always treasure these years.
Yeah.
Tell us about the year. Did you get stuck there unintentionally?
Yeah, we did. So originally our plan was like I generally race in Asia, sort of race in the East from February, March, April time. Like I try and do a bit of racing in the East. It's just the way the Xterra calendar has always
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
out.
Yeah, you've been doing that
And
since the Dan Hugo years, eh?
exactly, yeah. So we had Xterra Taiwan, which was the Asia Pacific Championships, as well as Ironman 70.3 Taiwan, like early March. So that was the plan. And when coronavirus sort of broke out in January, or when it became, known to the media, all of those Asian countries started shutting down, and they did a much better job than the Western world. Looking back on it now, they were very, very prompt and quick with their shutdown. And we actually had a few connections in Taiwan who. The Taiwanese do not trust the Chinese at all. I mean, a lot of people go to Taiwan and they think like, oh, we're like kind of in China, but it's not the case. Like they don't trust the Chinese as far as they can see. And they knew about coronavirus pandemic back in December already. And they had like a nationwide plan or strategy in place. And they locked down they were one of the first countries to lock down. So we got notification probably in like January that, all of our flights to Taiwan had been canceled and they were essentially locking down the island. So being the Westerners we are, we're like, oh, this is an Asian problem, and we're going to fly ourselves to America and go and race 70.3 Oceanside in California,
Oh, right. Yeah.
which was late March. And I've always wanted to do that race, and I hope I get to do it at some point. I've heard great things about it, and it is one of the biggest races in North America. So I was pretty excited at that, like change in schedule. And we flew out to Boulder for a training camp. We landed in Boulder on the 3rd of March. And literally within 5 days, the gyms and pools and everything was closed and we were locked indoors. So it was pretty dramatic start. And then, basically the entire world shut down. So there was no option straight out the gates to go home, but we weren't like desperate to try and get back just yet.
Do you rent a house and or flat apartment and a car and stuff? I mean, you've been going to Boulder for a few years now.
Yeah, we generally we rent. I've stayed in different places. Luckily this time around, so Dan, Hugo and Flora Duffy, they own a house there and they were stuck in South Africa. So we were meant to stay at their house for like 3 weeks. We had rented it for, and it ended up being, I think 6 months later, we were still there. So we were very fortunate that we had a great place to stay and they weren't charging the pants off of us. So we could afford to stay there. But yeah, it was Boulder, or like America never shut down to the point that the rest of the world did. In South Africa at a stage there, I think you're only allowed outdoors for an hour a day.
Yeah.
Stuff that doesn't really make a lot of sense, so we didn't really want to throw ourselves into that disaster back home. So we decided that we were just going to stay in Boulder. We could still train outdoors. They regarded exercise or outdoor activity as like an essential activity for human beings. And I agree with that. Obviously doing it in a safe way and being in the mountains and going and training, we still had access to all of that. We just couldn't go to gyms or swimming pools and things like that for a couple months. But everywhere in the world was like that. And we did know that when racing started to come back online, it would be here in the US.
So did you expect to be racing, or did you spend the whole year in limbo training, but kind of thinking, am I wasting my time? Am I just doing basic maintenance here? I mean, you must have had a really crazy year if you consider that this is your full-time job.
No, it was a very awkward place to be in, and we definitely went through. I mean, the word depressing or depression is, I think you need to use it with a bit of caution these days, but you definitely went through this emotional roller coaster of some days, you're feeling really great and positive about training and, whatever the goal is for the day, execute a good track session or bike workout, that kind of leaves you feeling satisfied and content going to sleep at night. But eventually, you know, after a few weeks of that, it becomes a little bit not pointless, but you're kind of like losing direction a little bit without like having a specific race target. With the way our entire world works is around events. So, you know, we sit down at the beginning of the year and plan out the calendar year with 2 to 3, or maybe, you know, maximum 3 A races in a season. And then we fill in the gaps in between with, you know, either destination races that we want to do, or races which pay really well. And we, you know, from the financial side of things, of course, that's another big element of how this job is sustainable. So yeah, it was very weird when everything was just pretty much wiped off the calendar. Unfortunately, Ironman, I don't think they dealt with it that well, and it's not all their fault either. They were also having to adapt and survive, but they left a lot of races on the calendar. So what I think a lot of professionals did is they opened up the schedule and they saw this list of races and they thought, well, okay, the next race that I can do is in 2 months' time. So that became the focus. And then what we figured out is that the races were waiting until 6 weeks out from the event, when the local city council would cancel the event. In that case, their insurance for the event would kick in and pay them out, so they wouldn't take a massive financial loss. So then you all of a sudden realize, wait a second, these schedules are here, but nothing's going to actually happen. It's just
tough one.
Yeah, it's just they're just on a calendar, and they're just getting cancelled as that 6-week period got closer. So then we kind of recalibrated and then we had to make the decision, you know, do we get involved in a repatriation flight? Because there were no commercial flights available. We would have had to contact the South African embassy and get onto a repatriation flight, which would take us back to Johannesburg at the time. And then there was a 2-week quarantine in Polokwane. And we were just like, you know, like there's no point in us putting ourselves through that. Not to mention the risk of international travel at the time. I mean, arguably speaking, the risk is higher right now. There's more cases globally than there were in June, July time. And it only seems to be growing. So the fact that we're in a worse situation globally, but everything's reopening, doesn't really add up. But I guess there's a lot more information out there, and there's ways to do things safely. Case in point is this event that we're at right now. I think they've, you know, gone above and beyond to make sure it's as safe as possible an event. But, you know, the guys who had to travel internationally, even us traveling from Colorado, which is a relatively safe zone within the US, traveling out to Florida, which was one of the worst hit places from a coronavirus standpoint, you know, there is a risk attached to that. But I think from our perspective is, you know, we are probably less at risk from the virus than those who have predisposed conditions or are potentially at a higher risk. So there's no right answer here. I don't know, like, you know, everyone needs to take a stand and do what they feel comfortable with, and you can't force people to do anything. But I'm very glad and happy that the PTO in incredibly difficult times have managed to put a race on despite all of the challenges.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, this is the most exciting race possibly ever, given the field, the format, the timing. But just to go back a little moment there, Xterra is obviously a huge part of your life. You're a 2-time world champion, which means, I mean, you're at a kind of a transition phase, I think, in your life where you've moved up to 70.3 distance, a half distance. You've won your first race, East London. You've done very well in the States. You got not much left to prove in the Xterra world. Was Xterra cancelling, and was it basically just all eyes on this race for the last 6 months?
Yeah, so Xterra pretty early on cancelled the entire season. I think by June or July, they had made the call that Xterra World Champs was off. Pretty much all of their races. There were a few European-based Xterras where the race organizers felt that they could do it safely within their region. So I think Xterra Prague, Xterra Italy, and I think 1 or 2 others. There were probably like 3 or 4 Xterras that went ahead, but it just would not have made sense for me to try and pack us up from America and fly over for 1 or 2 races. But in saying that, you are right. Like, I'm definitely in a transitional phase and 100% more focused on the long course racing, 70.3 and eventually full Ironman. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop racing Xterra. Xterra will, I think, always be a part of my racing schedule. It's a format of triathlon racing that I dearly love, and I think it adds to my strengths as an athlete. So I never want to lose that ability to race like really high intensity events. And being off road, it's almost a completely different sport in many ways. But I really love it, and I feel I can be competitive over 70.3 and Xterra distance. When I step up to full Ironman at some point, I think that then the distribution of training load is just not going to make sense to try and race across all three disciplines, and you'll become a jack of all trades, master of none situation.
Sure.
But I'm 31 at the moment, and I think I still got a few more years before I really focus in on Kona and trying to make a good run at the full distance. Maybe within 2 years or so, I'll start to shift focus on that. But for right now, being successful over the middle distance racing, whether that be Ironman 70.3 or challenge events, and then something like the PTO World Championships, which is this weekend. I think this distance suits me really well, where you can use a lot of that short course speed and translate it over to a kind of middle distance endurance event.
Yeah, I mean, you're a very light person. I mean, I think you're still, what, 58, 59 kilos? Am I right?
Yeah, I'm at 59 at the moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's super small. So we'll talk about that in terms of how you're going to deal with the bike weapons like Andy Dreitz at 80 Ks on the track on a flat course. But I mean,
Yeah,
you
ideal.
are light. You are a really good descender. You're a good technical rider. You proved it at Xterra. I mean, there are people like Simon Whitfield, Javier Gomez. They were able to go to the big races and then hop over to Maui and still grab a world championship title. So you could probably still get away with that. And if you, even when you're going to Kona, I guess you're always going to be up there and getting your sponsors great coverage in Xterra. But now, obviously, you headed into this race. You're probably going to get points, which does that. I think it might lead you to the Collins Cup in May, is it? Yeah. So you're kind of probably going to get dragged into more of this format, I guess. More sponsorship, more awareness of you as a brand. I mean, I see you weren't on Breakfast with Bob and you didn't get an Unbreakable video. So I think you're coming in under the radar here. And I got a sense that this is a big watershed time for Brad Weiss.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If they could take this exact field and put it in the mountains somewhere where I could really take advantage of my strengths as an athlete, I would love that. But I got an opportunity last year at 70.3 World Championships in Nice. We had a massive 13-kilometer climb midway through the bike course up the Col d'Avance. And I proved that I can be competitive against these guys if the course is tailored towards me. Finished top 10 at my first 70.3 World Champs, which I was very, very happy with.
Yeah, you were 7th, am I right?
9th.
9th, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I mean, Gustav Iden won that. He's here this weekend. Guys are saying, is this a course for the big Uber bikers, the long distance guys, to just put big watts down and blow the ITU guys away and leave it too difficult to run off the back of that? People are rating him. I rate him as a likely winner. Where do you see yourself, Brad? You're incredibly aero. I know when you won the Blue Lagoon Triathlon here in South Africa, there were some big bikers behind you. When I asked them why they didn't catch you on the bike, they said, he might be small, but he's incredibly aero. I mean, that was a flat course, and they said they just haven't seen that type of aero. So you clearly have something special. So what's your game plan, and what do you think of the game plan of the Brownlees, Edens, etc., against Sanders and Hoffman and all the rest?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating battle that they've pitched towards everybody, because it seems like everyone, regardless of what discipline you came from, believes they have a shot at winning this thing. Whether that be a super high intensity short course guy like a Vincent Louis, who essentially a sprint race suits him the best, right? Like nobody can touch Vincent in a sprint triathlon event right now. He's running close to 14 minutes for the 5K, and he's just untouchable in that format.
We actually saw a video of him on his TT bike, and he looked pretty good. I mean, you're a specialized teammate. You've probably seen him in the wind tunnel in Morgan Hill in California. I don't know. I saw he had his bike out. He had a super aero looking bike with his custom made aero bars. Do you think he can keep his head down for 80 Ks and hang in and keep his swim lead and get onto the bike up front?
That's the big question. Nobody knows. We've all gone back and forth about this exact question for the last 5 months, it feels like, and I'm almost like a little bit tired of going back and forth and like, can they, can't they? Look, these guys are incredible athletes and they can swim, bike, and run exceptionally well. A lot of guys don't believe that the ITU guys ride. They think, oh, they really fast swimmers and incredible runners, but they can't ride a bicycle, and that's just not true. Yeah, this is not true. These days, to perform at an ITU level, you have to be incredibly strong on the bike as well. So they put a lot of time and effort, especially the likes of the Norwegians, Christian Blumenfeld, who unfortunately is injured and not racing this weekend, but his training compatriot, Gustav Eden, who you mentioned, the 70.3 world champion, saw him out on track yesterday. And I was just doing a few like hot laps at race pace, or what I thought was close to race pace. And he was very comfy. I was holding like a 20-meter gap to him, and he looked incredible on the TT bike. So they spend, even though they're on the road bike, they've got their clip-on aero bars, and they spend a lot of time in that specific aero position. So I don't think the ITU guys are going to get caught out as much as we think, but there's just no ways that they can match the likes of a Lionel Sanders or Sebastian Kienle, Andy Dreitz. There's many other strong, Ben Hoffman, is like these
Andy
guys.
There's some big bikers, and I wouldn't be too surprised if one of them actually sacrificed themselves to blow the race open and actually Sturikovic style, not feature anything on the run, but kill the bike.
Yeah, and that's the big question: is what will that swim deficit be to the Uber bikers, and then can they bridge it? Like someone like Alistair Brownlee can time trial exceptionally well, and if they enforce the 20-meter draft zone, as they've said, if they enforce it correctly, it will be incredibly difficult for Vincent Louis or Henry Skuman or any of the ITU guys to actually ride with Ali, because Ali is the only true all-rounder here. And I think he's the overwhelming favorite, in my opinion. He brings like the fastest swim, probably the fastest run over that distance, and then can time trial and has a really, really good aero position. The challenge with this course is that there's literally not one opportunity to come out of your bars and to coast into a corner, or to coast onto a descent, to get out the saddle and climb a small little steep pitch. There's nothing like that, which is the most unique race course I've ever experienced. It's so difficult to stay down in that time trialing position and continue to generate power, especially after you've been down there for an hour. I think a lot of guys.
So Lionel Sanders was talking yesterday about his Canadian 1 hour record and how intense it is doing it on a velodrome. This 4K lap, I mean, how much space have you got to get around other athletes, as an example? I mean, I don't know how they're going to police the 20-meter gap with a whole bunch of you on course doing 4K laps. So tell us about that, and about how much space and how much difference it makes getting around one or two riders at a time with only a 4K lap.
It's going to be exceptionally difficult. And this is the big question mark, is that if there's a group of 10 or 15 ITU guys who come out the water together, how do they separate them by 20 meters? It's not physically possible. There's not enough space. The track is massive, and it's incredibly vast and dramatic. And it is a big space, but you're doing laps. It's a 5-minute lap. So if you take if you want to try and pass someone on the straights, you probably have about 2 minutes to get past, and then you're starting to turn. And if you want to pass people on the turn, you have to take the long way around on their outside. So it's even more difficult. So now you're having to put in a massive, 300, 400, 500 watt surge just to get around one athlete. And the rule is, once you cross another athlete's front wheel, they have to show backward movement. But you may not slot in. So if there's a situation where there's 10 athletes in front of you and they're all holding a 20-meter gap, you have to pass 10 athletes, and it's physically not possible. There's not one person here who can do that at 48, 49 kilometers an hour. There's no one strong enough to do that, because you basically have to be a motorbike for 5 minute lap.
What are they saying? What did they say at race briefing? How is this going to turn this race potentially into a bit of a mess on the bike, or is this manageable? Are the guys on motorbikes the refs?
There's going to be refs on motorbikes, and the potential is, yes, it could end up being a mess. That it just, not a mess, but it could end up being a lot more drafting than what we want to see, and not the true individual time trial that we want to see, you know, where if you have a straight road, it's very, very easy to space people out 20 meters. It all falls into line pretty quickly. But when you have this lap effect, there's going to be a lot of bunching. It's just not possible to spread people out enough.
So are we going to see some drama? I mean, there's cameras. That's the beauty of Daytona. You can sit in the grandstand with your super soda and your Big Mac, and you can watch every second of the action. So are there going to be yellow cards flying?
Well, at race briefing yesterday, they said, look, guys, the eyes of the world are on you, which is the truth. You know, like, absolutely. I think every single triathlete in the world will be tuning in to watch this thing, because they've done an incredibly good marketing job at broadcast, well, at pitching this event to the world. And sure. Now it's up to us as athletes to race and as fairly as possible. Unfortunately, I just don't know if the logistics make sense. It's a incredibly dramatic like event and scenery, and it seems like this place is built for a triathlon, but to fit 60 men, all of a very similar level, on the same course within the same 3 to 4 minute period, I don't see, it doesn't add up in my head. Without there being either a lot of drafting penalties, if they apply the rule of law, they have to penalize people. But it doesn't.
Where will your penalty box be? On that lap or at the end of the bike, Brad?
No, it's at the end of the bike. They said it's too dangerous. Normally with challenge events or even Ironman events, it's a stand down penalty. So they'll stop you on course and you'll serve your penalty right there, or you can stop at the next penalty box.
So it gets even more dramatic, are you saying? I mean, this could be a real show. I mean, I'm thinking Colosseum, gladiators, lions eating people. I mean, this is going to be cool. Eh? I mean, as much as it could wreck someone's race if they get a wrongly called penalty for blocking or something unintentional, but I guess this is showbiz. I mean, this is 2020 cricket, eh?
Yeah, and my worry is that for the sake of the show, they don't penalize people. And in that way, don't allow the Uber bikers to come through. Sure. Because if they allow that front ITU group to push the boundaries and sit at 10 meters or whatever, then they're getting a drafting effect, and that is huge. It's a game changer.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how strictly they marshal that.
So and Brad, then again, who is that? I mean, you guys know each other's. I know you watch each other's training programs. You know what each other's doing. You know what your watts per kilo are. You swim with each other. You know what you do per 100 meters. Who's going to get out of the water? I mean, firstly, I just want to check. I'm assuming Florida, and it's going to be a warm swim. So I don't wetsuits or no wetsuits.
No, it's going to be. Currently, it's wetsuit legal. So the lake here is it's pretty shallow, which you would think it would be warm, but apparently it's not. It's sitting at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, and the cutoff is 68.
Okay, so are you not allowed to practice swim? Are you guys not jumping in there?
Yeah, we can. Today was the first day that it was open. I went to the swimming pool. But tomorrow I'll go and swim at the lake. There's also a pro-am this evening. It's the first event of the weekend where you could bid on a swimmer and have the age group has had the opportunity to bid on a couple of the pro starters, and the pros will swim for them, and then they'll do the bike, and I guess a teammate will do the run.
So you were pretty stoked not to get one of those.
Yeah, I missed all of the things, and I'm quite happy to fly under the radar and not have to rock up to too many pre-race commitments. But in saying that, I do know that my back's up against the wall here. I'm not like pulling the wool over my own eyes. I know that this course is just not my cup of tea. It's like a perfect storm for me.
Yeah.
I think at 70.3 World Champs last year in Nice, I lost 90 seconds. The second group was 90 seconds down on the lead pack. And I think if we can hold it to a similar kind of deficit, that'll be a good start.
And who'll be there, Brad? Who is that front pack?
I mean, I think it's the majority of the ITU guys. So it's going to be Vincent Louis, Henry Skuman, Brownlee brothers, both Ali and Johnny. Then there's a few other ITU guys, Salzburg from Switzerland.
Gustav, not up there with his swim. He didn't sound like it. He didn't rate his swim.
He generally misses the swim pack in an ITU race. He's normally that, 40 seconds down, so he'll probably end up missing it as well. And then you have like the strong long course swimmers like a PTO, Tim O'Donnell, who swims incredibly well. I mean, I swim with him in Boulder, and when that guy turns it on, he's very, very quick in the water. So I'm hoping that there's enough of those quality swimmers to fill the gaps.
And Brad, what are the guys saying? I mean, just before we go on to where they on to the bike, when you've been chatting to each other, are a couple of the guys going, "Oh man, I've hardly swum this year. It's been locked down. I'm just here for the fun, see what happens"? Or do you think most guys have put in the 6-month grind with enough notification that this was going to be a race that would go ahead?
Yeah, look, I think the guys are fit. There's no one here who's not prepared. Everyone is at their peak. The ITU guys have had enough racing towards the back end of the season. They got 4 or 5 races in. There were a few non-drafting long course races here in the US as well. I was lucky enough to get a few. The PTO stimulated a few of the prize purses and gave us some money to race for, which was great, and gave us a reason to head out there and get some race experience going into this
event. And you
look
pretty sharp. I mean, you had one bad luck. You had one race where you got really cold and packed it in. But I mean, you've looked up there. I mean, you've been sitting with the I wouldn't say the big mouth, but the loud talking Sam Long, and having some good banter. You guys are pretty well conditioned, eh?
Yeah, we've definitely managed to do a really solid block of training. I mean, I haven't had any injury or sickness issues the whole year. So it's probably been, from a training volume standpoint, I think it's been my biggest year of training, because generally we would have these taper into races, and so it'll be blocks of the season where your training volume is very low, where we didn't have that this year. It's all just been, consistent training all the way throughout the year. So I think it's set me up really nicely, but there is obviously, it's been fatiguing. I mean, mentally incredibly draining, knowing that, just having these races on the schedule, and then you start to prepare and get into good shape, and then it disappears, and you almost have to backtrack into a bit of a base phase trainings period, and then build up again to a peak, which then gets pulled again. So it was.
Well, imagine the amateurs who spend their lives working, then try and find 2 or 3 months to train, spend all the money, book flights, and then it's cancelled. It's been a rough year. So as you said, hats off to the PTO, because they have really been a godsend to the sport this year. And I think this awareness that's coming this weekend is going to be a big boost for the sport of triathlon, to get more people into it. I'll get more magazine readers, bike brands will sell more bikes, events will grow. This is an absolute blessing. So take us through your race. Now, you're a pretty solid swimmer. Tell us where you expect to be, swim, bike, and then run. Obviously, you're a fantastic runner. You're fit, you're consistent. And where could you end? Because I know they're paying up to number 60. Where could you end that would make you satisfied, knowing who's in the field, that you're going to get a payday that justifies 2020?
Yeah, so I think in an ideal world, I'll probably come out the water that minute down. So I'm not sure how many people will make that front group, but I just know that I can't swim with Henry Skuman. It's just physically not possible for me to do that. So I think that second group, if we can catch onto the tail end of that front pack, if they don't go out the gates completely balls to the wall, we could maybe hang on for at 70.3 Nice last year. I hung on for like 750 meters before that elastic snapped. And the longer you can hang on to that front pack, the longer it drags you into the race, and the smaller the deficit in the end. Being a wetsuit swim will definitely help. It generally keeps the pack together a little bit more. So I'm really hoping that it's around that sort of 60-second range. I'm not too worried about what position I come out. It's more the deficit to the front. And then I know that there's going to be some proper firepower on the bike in that group. It's all the long course guys, right? So either someone like Tim O'Donnell misses that group and is in our group, and he can work with us to try and pull it back. And although there's a 20-meter draft rule, you still get pulled along by the environment of being in a group, right? Sure. Someone goes to the front, they're pushing hard, you go with it. It's just, you don't have a choice. It's not a decision you make. You have to go with it, especially in a race like this. If you let up for just a moment, you're going to get spat out the back and you're going to disappear pretty quickly.
Everybody on disc wheels, just double checking on the bike.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
Yeah, everyone's on disc wheels. I mean, it's the most aero focused race I've ever done. You know, it's just everybody is dialing in every single possible aero gain they can find. Had Specialized send me a brand new aero helmet, which I only managed to sort of dial in yesterday.
Show us.
I can find it here for you.
Come on, where's Nina when you need her?
She's behind the scenes, yeah. So it's the Specialized S-Works.
Sick, a little S-Works pawn.
Yeah. So this is the standard time trial.
With a visor, Brad, or glasses?
So I've been testing it. The visor, I feel that it was hurting my neck a little bit because these helmets, obviously, this point, if you sitting at it flat, it was quite difficult for me to see.
You got to tilt your head up.
My neck, yeah. So I've decided to ditch the visor and I'm going to just go with glasses. I have the Roka Matadors, which are pretty aero glasses themselves.
Don't be shy to show us those. We like to see the good stuff.
This is probably not the set that I'm going to be wearing, but as you can see, they're pretty sleek.
Shields.
Yeah,
those are slick. Yeah, cool.
And it fits pretty nicely with the helmet. And yeah, then I'm running the Roval Rapide wheels, which is Roval's brand new aerodynamic.
Launched 3 months ago, or 6 months ago.
Yeah, and the Roval disc wheel. I've got the SRAM red ETAP Axis wireless gearing system. So I can't blame the bike.
No, you can't.
The equipment is as good as it's going to get. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on the time trial bike. Unfortunately, we were in Boulder going into their winter, or it's the middle of winter now in Boulder. So we had quite a lot of snow and cold weather to deal with. So I ended up doing a lot of my training inside on the indoor trainer, which, I mean, was actually a blessing in disguise in many ways, because I am not a big fan of the trainer. I much prefer being outdoors.
But it's high quality,
But it's great quality training. You just can't hide it. And I think it prepared me mentally for what this race is going to throw at us. There's nowhere to go. Like you can't say, okay, at 60 kilometers, we're hitting that climb and I'm going to get a bit of relief. It's coming, but there's none of that. It's going to be
just that's one. Grind.
Yeah, that's one lap of 20, and then there's 2 laps of 20, and I'm suffering like a dog, and you can't do anything about it. So it's going to be a decision of you either just stay in that group, or you potentially are the one feeling good and commanding that group. But coming back to the race, I think that those Uber bikers in that second bunch are going to do everything in their power to get across as quickly as possible, because in order to beat an Alistair or a Vincent, or
you got to go with them.
You have to be with them. Yeah. You have to be ahead of them to start the run. Like Vincent has to be 3 minutes back.
Sure.
And then you might have a shot.
So are they going to, I mean, NASCAR, we've all seen when they come past a certain point, they get a time check. Are you going to be able to see each other? Are you going to know where each other are? Can you look across the track at 4Ks and see where the bunch is?
At many points on the track, you can see the other side of the track. So from a visual standpoint, you will be able to see. I just hope it's not looking over your shoulder, waiting for them to catch you, because that could be quite a scary experience.
And is there a rule? Do you pull left or something if you are left?
You have to keep left and passing on the right. Yeah. So that is the rule.
Are you going anti-clockwise?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So, Brad, have you got enough fuel on your shiv to drink for 80Ks, or you guys got any drink stops along the way?
There is an aid station on the track, but I mean, I did those sort of hot laps that I did yesterday at what I felt was almost race pace intensity. I was averaging 48 kilometers an hour for the entire lap. So it's super, super fast. You're not grabbing a bottle at 50 Ks an hour. It's just not possible. So it's going to be quite difficult to refuel. You're going to have to carry all of your fuel on board. I mean, if you decide to sit up, even just lifting your head out of the bars makes a massive difference. Your speed drops by like 2 or 3 kilometers an hour. So the guys who can really like dial in and hold that TT position for 90, well, it's going to be, we've worked it out to be between an hour 40 and an hour 45. There might be 1 or 2 Uber bikers who dip below an hour 40, but I just don't see it happening.
So they were talking about a lot of wind, the guys who were practicing in the last few days, but wind conditions for Sunday look pretty benign, eh?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to get a good day. So the first 2 days of practice was pretty windy, and it definitely made a big impact. Like you could just see on the average speed at the end of your ride, like it made a pretty huge impact, and you could just feel. The problem with a bowl is that whatever direction the wind blows from, it catches the wind. So it ends up being that you ride into a headwind for like 70% of the lap, regardless of what direction the wind's blowing, because it just swirls inside there.
Sure.
So you get like a tailwind for maybe one straight, and then you start hitting the headwind as you hit the corner, and then you hit it, and then you're working into a headwind the whole way back to that corner, and then you get a bit of like kind of no wind and then a tailwind, and then you start again into the headwind. So it feels like you ride into a headwind for 70% of the lap, which for me, I think it's actually going to help me, because those bigger bikers it'll kind of slow them down a little bit. And if they're in my group and I'm kind of suffering out the water a little bit, if it just holds them up a little bit, I can hopefully just recover and
they've got big engines burning a lot of fuel, struggling into the wind. You're much more aero. Absolutely. Bear that in mind, Brad. You're carrying the SAFA flag, and James and Henry and Jeannie. So just don't give up. We know how you run, and we know how we all watch.
Yeah, that's my biggest like weapon. I know is that I can run really well off of a hard bike. So I just want to get to the run in contention. That I can still run for a solid position.
What's solid, Brad? What's solid for you?
So
hit us with a number.
The PTO have put up obviously a massive prize purse, and that is like a very big carrot at the end of this thing. So my main goal is to get into the top 20, because that's when the prize money starts to increase, right? Anything inside the top 20, I think, is an awesome result in this field. Look, the guy who comes 40th is still a world-class athlete here. Like every single name has done something big in our sport. That's the only reason. That's the only way you get into this race, is if you have done something super impressive. So even if you come 50th, it doesn't mean you're a bad athlete. So it's kind of like taking the pressure off from that perspective. Of course, there's 50 guys or 60 guys on that start list all wanting to win. It's not going to happen.
But you all get paid. But I mean, this is what makes it so exciting. This is why we're all dying to watch and not knowing what to expect at all. So you get off the bike 30th, looking for 10 spots up on the run.
Yeah, and I think I can quite comfortably do that. So top 20 is like the conservative goal, right? It's like I hope I can tick that box. Then top 15, I think, is like world-class performance. Then I've had
How much is that, Brad? I actually haven't seen the split of the prize money. What is 15?
I can pull it up for you. I'm just trying to.
I think 100 grand is the winner, which is, for those who don't travel much, that's 1.6 million rand.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Yeah, so the first place is 100, second is 70, third is 50, fourth is 35, fifth is 30, and then it goes 25, 23, 20, 18, 17, 15, 13, 11, 10. 15th place is $9,000.
So it's still 150 grand.
Yeah, exactly. A top 15 is a great payday. And then from position 21 to 60, all gets $2,500.
Oh, okay. So top 20 or bust.
Yeah, well, or you get 40 grand to go and cheer on your fellow athlete. But I hope I'm not in that box.
Yeah. No, I think it's amazing. So let's quickly talk about the other South Africans. Henry, great swimmer, will be up the front. Obviously been improving always on his bike, spent time, raced against you a year ago in East London. The guy's got pedigree. He's obviously small, which means he's 2 kilos lighter than you. I think he's 57.
Yeah, he somehow managed to get smaller than me. I don't know how it's possible.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's a good runner, but I imagine he'll get off the bike pretty tired. And then we've got James, who didn't swim very well in the People's Triathlon and PE, but came out and caught Matt Troutman and Carl Buckley on the bike and then outran them. So maybe a good time for James, looking like he's on the up.
Yeah, James looks like he's in great form. And I mean, okay, well, I'll start with Henry. I mean, Henry's obviously going to be the one. He'll likely lead out the water. I think he's either him or Vincent will lead the swim. So he's going to be in a great position coming out the water. And then the big question mark is just can he time trial for 80 kilometers with that group? And I think that athletes like Henry, depending on how the marshals govern that 20-meter rule, if they enforce it correctly, I think he'll suffer and he'll get dropped out of that group pretty quickly.
Sure.
If they allow them to push those boundaries and he gets sucked along for 5 laps or something before losing that group, that'll make a massive difference to his overall finishing position in the end of the day. So,
which
I
affects
think
everybody else. That's a great point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The bike is definitely going to be the part that he struggles on the most. And then if he gets to the run still fresh enough to run well to his potential, he can do some massive damage on the run. He's like us smaller guys. We, unfortunately, here in Florida, it would typically any other time of the year would be super hot and really humid and muggy. And I mean, it's just ideal for us. But again, playing into the big boys' hands, it's cold and no heat to deal with. So another blow for the smaller guys. We just really getting copped on this event, unfortunately.
And
There's
do you
just
think
no real parts.
Given the Coliseum effect, the fact that you can see each other, not much chance for like what Sebastian Kienle did to everyone in Vegas all those years ago when he just bust the whole field apart and caught everyone napping. I don't think you could do it. There's no surprise attacks coming here, hey?
I mean, I think Sam Long or Lionel Sanders are the guys who are capable of doing something like that. Like when I did a few of these smaller PTO races, in the lead up to this race, we raced out in Bear Lake in Utah, and Sam Long did the race, and it ended up being a much shorter swim than what we would typically do because of adverse weather conditions. And he came past me on the bike, and he put in one of those like Sebastian Kienle Las Vegas attacks, and it's incredibly impressive to see what those guys can do on a bike. Like I try to go with him, but there's just no ways.
How's he swimming? Is he a decent swimmer? I don't really know much. We haven't seen much of him.
No, he's pretty poor swimmer. So he'll be with that pack. Like Lionel and Sebi group. Yeah.
So is that a 3-pack you expect, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there'll be the sort of lead ITU group, then a strong sort of middle distance racing group, and then the Uber bikers. And it's going to be interesting to see what type of time they lose. I think if they're further than 3 minutes down, it's going to be a big ask to get back. Just because of the nature of like the environment, and there's no real part of the course that they can really take advantage from. It's just basically dial in what you believe you can hold for an hour and 40 minutes and see where you come out at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I do think a few strong bikers will get to the front and do some damage to the ITU boys. And that's the key, is that the strong bikers need to get to the front and then do as much damage as they can to those runners. They need to make those runners suffer, that if they come off the bike, that they just can't run to their potential. Because if you allow Vincent to come off the bike fresh, you ain't not running with him. But if he comes off the bike and he's hobbling and he can't, and his hammies want to cramp, then it's a different ball game. He's not running 3-minute Ks. Then he's suffering at 3:40s.
Sure.
And then you run and then a Lionel runs him into the ground every day of the week, because Lionel is the strongest. Lionel's the strongest ox you'll ever come across. That guy will not break. So if you allow Lionel to get himself into the race, then good luck.
Yeah, we saw last year against Pablo. I mean, he looked dead and buried, and he still managed to get past him at the end.
No, I don't think the ITU boys know how to suffer like Lionel Sanders can suffer. They just don't. They don't go to. They incredibly fast and talent. They're the most talented athletes in our sport, but they don't know how to dig deep to the point that a Lionel or a Sebastian or even Sam Long on the bike. Like, these guys take themselves to places that I don't think guys truly understand the depths that they can dig to their soul.
Especially when they have to dig for
I hope I wanted as much as them. I believe I wanted as much as them, but I don't know if I can suffer as much as them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to be a part of the story. And I think being a professional triathlete, if you got given the opportunity to be here and be a part of this week, I think you're mad to turn it down.
Oh, Brad, I mean, we've watched, you and I, we've been the whole journey together since you were lighty in the bike shop in Somerset West. Just talking to you here, knowing that you're up against the best athletes in the world and probably the single biggest triathlon there's ever been. It's amazing, man. It's magic. We're really proud of you as South Africans, and can't wait to see you. And wherever you come, just you being there and having got there is just pride enough. So let's quickly talk about the ladies. Your training partner, Flo Duffy, injured and not there, sadly, which means that's all the top kind of three, with Lucy Charles and Danny Rife not there. What do you think the ladies' race is going to be like?
Yeah, of course, like those top athletes, unfortunately didn't get an opportunity to come out and race due to injury and other reasons. But I think that has really like opened the ladies' race wide open for somebody to step in and dominate. I think the ladies' race is going to be a long course athlete that gets it done.
So anyhow, it will be hard to beat, eh?
I think, yeah, exactly. Like Annie Haag, I think Lisa Norden from Sweden. She is proven herself over the time trial distance. She's been racing some UCI specific time trialing events, and she's incredibly strong, and she's raced on this course as well. As well as Paula Findlay. She won last year, and she beat Lucy Charles on this course last year. So I think the girls who've raced here before and understand the course a little bit better, and the dynamics of racing on this track, it's very atypical. It's not what we used to. So I think just knowing how, even if it's a slightly windy day, like how to use that wind to your advantage. But again, I think there's the firepower from the ITU side is not really here on the women's side. So that's going to create a bigger opening for the long course girls to come to the front. And I think the ladies' race should be pushed out to probably like 3.5 hours total race time, which again then swings it a little bit more into the long course girls' favor. They've got their nutrition dialed, and they're used to racing over that distance where the short course girls are.
So you're expecting what, sub 3 for the male winner?
I think bang on 3, probably just sub 3. I think we're going to push each other to some quite incredible times. And in order to win the race, I think you're just going to have to be producing quite an exceptional day.
Yeah. Shit.
No, on the run, definitely the run's going to be a sub 1 hour for sure.
Sub 1 hour. Oh, of course. Sorry. I'm still thinking of the normal distance. Of course. Yeah.
It's only 18 kilometers. So.
Yeah. And Brad, okay, so I'm sitting here. It's Friday night in South Africa. I'm hitting a pot. You sitting there, nervous. Lunchtime on Friday. What you going to do for the next 48 hours?
Yeah, we were saying today, like, it just feels like this race has been a continuous hype and marketing, and it just never happens. It's like, when is this damn race going to happen? Because it just feels like it's never getting here. But once we arrived here in Daytona, it started to get a bit real, and you can just feel that like nervous tension building as we get closer to race day. So typically 2 days out from a race, I don't do a whole lot. Went to the pool today, did a swim, and we actually went and did a hot lap in a car on the track today, which was really cool.
On the Daytona, like one of those cars, supercar.
On the race, unfortunately, it wasn't a NASCAR. It wasn't one of the NASCAR race cars, but it was a BMW M2 or M3. I don't know.
Were you in the passenger seat?
Yes.
And
yeah, they didn't.
What's top speed?
We went just over 200 kilometers an hour.
Oh, nice.
Pretty quick.
So you'll lie low, and then you start what time in the day? Like lunchtime?
So we start. The women are off on Sunday at 10 a.m. local time, which is 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5 o'clock. You guys are 9 o'clock, so you're 4 hours later. So you're 2 in the afternoon.
2 p.m. Yeah, so it's quite a late start, which is a little bit awkward from a timing point of view. It's difficult to do afternoon races, but
temperature, is it likely to raise the temperature a bit?
A little bit, but I think the peak will be about 20 degrees Celsius. I think the weather's going to not play. It's not really going to play a factor. It's going to be cool, and everyone's going to be able to race to their potential. I would love it to have been hotter and humid and difficult for the big boys, at least make them suffer on the run. After I have to suffer like a dog on the bike for 2 hours. But unfortunately, I think it's going to be wide open from a temperature point of view anyway. That's not going to play a factor.
So how's the hype in Florida? I mean, most Floridians, I'm sure, know nothing about triathlon. Are there street signs everywhere? Are you guys heroes? Are they expecting a nice big crowd in the grandstand?
I think because of COVID, they haven't done that. They haven't really pushed the marketing side that much from like trying to build the crowds to come and be at the event. I don't think, I think if you want to come and watch, you can, but they are not really incentivizing it. They want people to watch online, and it's more generating the hype outside of Florida, as opposed to getting people to come out to the event.
Yeah.
I mean, in future years, I mean, that stadium holds over 250,000 people. So it's 250,000 people that it holds. And you can just imagine
that's what it's about. Eh? I mean, that'll be amazing.
That's the vision here, is that, you know, they're going to have a situation where they can hold a triathlon with a massive, you know, thousands of people coming in to watch, and being able to, as you say, sit there with a burger and chips and watch their favorite athletes go around and around in circles.
I'm booking for next year, that's for sure. I think it's amazing. I think it's phenomenal. I wish we had a race car, a track here with a swimming pool or a dam that we could swim in the middle, because I'd love to bring that to Africa.
Apparently I think there's 3 or 4 NASCAR circuits around the country that have got these bodies of water in the middle. So that's the long-term game here, is to have this as a series. Unfortunately, that does not bode well for me, because I need some climbing and some undulations on the bike to play into my strengths.
So Brad, two more things. Obviously, next year is a new year. You've obviously, I don't know if you're going to go back to Maui again, what your plans are as you transition into long course and road. I'm assuming you're going to spend some time back in South Africa so your family can enjoy you and Nina. What's the plan from here forwards? And tell us a little bit about your sponsors who are going along this journey with you, and how Brad Weiss is making ends meet.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So after this race, Nina and I are heading back home. Finally, I said today, whether that plane takes off or not, I'm gonna row myself back home if that's what it takes.
Sure.
But yeah, we're very keen to get home now and settled, and we actually bought a house in Stellenbosch over the last month. So that's really exciting. We'll be moving in on the 22nd of December. So really, really excited about that. And then we're getting married on the 6th of February next year. So a few personal goals to start the year, move away from triathlon for a little bit, but we'll be racing 70.3 South Africa in January, should it go ahead. And then we'll be taking February as a little bit of a down month, and do a little mini moon somewhere, and hopefully just enjoy each other and our new house, and reset a little bit.
I'm packing my tux as we speak, and I'm starting to write my speech. I'll be a free MC for you, free Germany. so Brad, and then your sponsors, in terms of the guys who've been with you. I mean, I know you've struggled in the early years. There were guys like Conrad Stoltz, Dan, people soaking up big sponsorships. You came into it at the back end when let's face it, Lance Armstrong didn't make sponsorship too easy for pro athletes. And now you've got it. Every time you put on your beautiful kit, you've got the Puma guys, you've got Rush, Noon. I mean, they've been great to you, huh?
Absolutely. No, I mean, I can't say enough for my sponsors. They've been incredible, and through a very difficult year, especially within the retail space, the guys took a massive knock, and with every single one of my sponsors, they've been amazing, standing with me, and no one has tried to go down to the letter of the law within our contracts and tried to wheedle their way out of anything. Everyone's been incredibly supportive. We've brought on 2 new sponsors and added a recovery. They do the percussion guns and a few other recovery devices, which I'll be trying to gain a little bit more traction for them back home in South Africa as well as internationally. And then Momentous is a supplement company who do they do a range of products, but protein shakes as well as like endurance recovery protein shakes, some really like specific products which are aimed at like sort of high performing elite athletes, as well as just high performers within any industry. So yeah, those are 2 new partners of mine.
Whatever you're taking, it's definitely working, because I don't think I've ever seen you look this shredded. I mean, there's not much fat. There's more fat on a used toothpick. So I hope you're going to eat lots before the race, because your body doesn't have much to eat.
It's been a tough year. We've been cutting budgets.
Brad, it's been lekker talking. I can't wait to watch you race. We all can't. We can't wait to see you back in South Africa next year. And good luck, man. We're thinking of you. The South Africans are watching it on SuperSport, which is so exciting. We'll be throwing millies for you, man. All the best.
Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate you. Sorry? I want to thank the South African community.
Nina, why don't you get in here and have the closing speech?
No, a guy, I mean, obviously, like, super proud to be representing the South African flag at this event. It's amazing that a few, like, there's, 4 of us racing, and they could have, I mean, Anna would have qualified with her roll down slot, but I think she must have had a problem getting over with visas, or, I mean, just travel these days.
And then Matt Troutman, the same thing.
Well as Matt Troutman. So I think we could have even had a few more Saffers on the start line, but the ones who are here, I think we'll turn ourselves inside out and know that people are staying awake late on a Sunday night to watch us. So hopefully we can put on a show for them.
We can't wait. Good luck, Brad.
Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate you reaching out. Yeah.
No way. Lucky chatting. Ciao.
There's no point being a pro if you're not willing to step up to the plate and test yourself against the best in the world.
If I knew what's driving me, I'd probably have fixed it and I'd stop driving places.
Me versus everybody else, baby, and that's exactly how I like it.
My gut feels like it's time, just a matter of executing.